Warning, if you don't subscribe now, I will take personal offense. You know that I know that you're in quarantine, and I would sort of be like saying that I'm not worth your time. Punchline, a plot twist. I am actually just joking. Or am I? Still trying to figure things out, like, oh wow, it's pretty cool. This camera, it does fall on my face. That's pretty neat. Time. After all this time, what's something that everyone could enjoy? What's something that everyone could agree on? Oh, I know. I'll give harsh critiques on one of the most beloved animes in the romance genre that would 100% go over very well with everybody. Totally spontaneous idea that I just now had, not premeditated. Okay, I'm going to give some harsh critiques at the beginning, but that's not the main premise of this video. I actually have far more positive things to say than negative. I actually very much enjoyed the second season of Clannad, and Clannad Afterlife is one of the most absolute moving animes that I had ever seen. I particularly hold Clannad in very high regards. There's just a whole lot more to it than just that, so before I dig deep, I wanted to tell you a little bit of background information about Clannad and what it is. Clannad. What is it? Where does it come from? What does it mean? Clannad, it means to come together, or family. So Clannad, it actually began as a visual novel, which then after becoming popular became a few manga volumes, and in September 2007, Toei Animation made a Clannad film adaptation, and we'll get to that. But then after the film, Kyoto Animation released the series Clannad in 2007, which then was followed by Clannad the second season, Afterlife, in 2008. And I guess it'd be a good idea to give you a quick overview about the film. The film adaptation compresses the 30 hours of content the series offers into a mere 90 minutes. The story is confusing and poorly structured due to this time restraint. It's stifled by weaker animation, which has inconsistencies. It skips in-depth character arcs and spoils major plot points, all of which is better executed in its two-season series counterpart. And on top of that, the voice actors are different, which I think would set an odd precedence in your mind if you were to watch the movie before the series, because then you'd be watching the same characters but with different voices. I would think having to readjust the voices in your head would just take you out of the experience, like I just did. An aesthetically pleasing segue. And now for my personal experiences with Clannad. I began Clannad because I wanted to watch a heavy romance-oriented anime with my girl, and I heard nothing but glowing reviews for Clannad. I knew very full well that the animation was done in 2007, so I kept my expectations realistic. I had a feeling that razzle and dazzle animation wasn't going to be the selling point for Clannad, and that's not to say that Clannad isn't aesthetically pleasing at times, because it actually has really decent animation, and some of it holds up pretty well to this day. Sometimes in the beginning of the episode where it looks like the animation is going 60 frames per second, which is a huge deal, especially for 2007. There's high budget animes now that don't do that. The problem with Clannad's first season is that the character development and arc progression are painfully slow. Its pacing is so off-putting, and I hate to say this about any anime, but it was basically a chore to watch. If it weren't for the fact that I knew that there would be a strong second season follow-up, I would have dropped this anime like a bad habit. That was the physical displayment of what I would have done hypothetically. And that would have been funny if I didn't explain it, but you have to explain everything to everybody now. And now it's not funny. Comedy used to be funny, it used to be great, but now it's dumb. It's dumb and it's dead. And you know who killed it? The strong suit of Clannad, I would say, are its beautiful plot points. And when I think back about the arcs the storyline has to offer, there are a few of them that stick out to me as both beautiful and endearing. The problem is this: the spirit of these storylines in itself are beautiful, but the poor pacing bites, and it somewhat makes these arcs clunky in its presentation. The other issue I have is that there are some beautiful and somewhat gratifying plot points, but there are also many episodes with mini arcs, and they're seemingly trivial. Make no mistake, Clannad is also slice of life, so I understand why some things very much are trivial. That's just part of the lore of slice of life anime. The problem is that, coupled with very slow story progression, it makes the anime very tiresome. If I were to rate Clannad as a standalone anime from its second season, then I could not bring myself to give that season of the anime high marks. I just can't bring myself to say that the few decent arcs in an anime is worth your time investment. And typically I am a very patient viewer. I can appreciate it when a story takes its time. I love it when characters are given time to be fleshed out. This also allows you to become accustomed to their quirky personalities and gives characters a baseline to work off of, which then can set up meaningful developments in both character and storyline. Unfortunately, even the humor is heavily affected by this. How is the humor heavily affected by this, you ask? Well, let me ask you this. Do you know how important it is the relationship between humor and timing is? It's very important. See, if I did that joke 1.7 seconds faster, that would increase the comedic value of that joke. What's it like knowing that comedy is nothing but cold, hard calculation? Now, for the characters, I think it's pretty funny, at least to me, because I've grown to really love these characters, and the thing is that almost none of my heartfelt connections with the characters come from the first season. I grew somewhat closer to the characters, but I wasn't fully invested at that point. Time-wise, was I invested in the first season? Yes. Was I invested emotionally? Not really. But interestingly enough, the baseline of these characters are important, meaning you absolutely cannot watch Afterlife without watching the first season. The characters undoubtedly grow in the first season, it just doesn't feel like it happens a whole lot. I would probably say that Nagisa in the first season has the most changes, and even then for the most part, she remains mostly a static character. The characters for the most part are, in truth to me, a bit boring. The other thing about the characters is that Tomoya and Nagisa have almost no chemistry. It's not only that the characters are different from each other, they're not even really opposites. It just feels like it shouldn't work, which is why I wasn't really into a love story to begin with. Tomoya is portrayed as a delinquent slacker who hates school, and Nagisa is an extremely kind, timid, yet honest girl who finds it difficult to make friends and fit in. The relationship between them is seemingly forced, and quite frankly, it shouldn't work. It shouldn't work in writing, it shouldn't work in real life, it shouldn't work in any medium. But then something incredible happens. The relationship that should not work, in my mind, somehow evolves into something genuine and heartfelt. So much so that I still feel sentimental just even thinking about it, which brings me into the second season. Again, the irony about the relationship between these characters is that it feels like it shouldn't work at all, but the characters then take qualities of each other to become, in short, better people. Their bonds allows their qualities to rub off on each other, making them stronger than their former selves. The girl who is lacking confidence finds the ability to pursue things that makes her happy. The apathetic boy finds meaning in his life, but only after realizing his love for Nagisa. I find the relationship profoundly beautiful. And as an anime reviewer, I absolutely relish the idea that I could recommend something to a viewer that you can get an original experience out of. And I think Clannad offers that. Clannad dwells deeper than any other anime that I had ever seen into the love lives of the characters who have fallen for each other. Many other romance-oriented anime titles end right where Clannad just starts to get good. For me, that's one of the major things that sets this title apart from the others. Although you are merely watching the love lives of a couple, it feels like an exciting journey that you get to experience, and I would say that that in itself makes a title worthwhile of your time. But it isn't. No, not because Afterlife isn't worthwhile of your time, but because it's even more than just an original experience. See, you thought I was going to say something negative there. But I didn't. You can't figure me out. I know how to keep you guessing. The fact that Clannad reaches beyond further than your average romance title isn't the only thing it has going for it. The execution and unexpected twists and turns honestly had me grinding out the last half of the season. The tone shift Clannad has in Afterlife isn't as massive as other titles that I've seen in the past, but it's nuanced just enough so it's not too radical that would otherwise make for a jarring and far-fetched experience, yet it's just drastic enough to make you feel absolutely emotionally distraught. For a change of pace, and for something I don't typically do, I wanted to talk briefly about one single common criticism I see about Clannad, and I just don't agree with it. I've seen some people, as well as other reviewers, say that the ending and anime doesn't make sense. The reason why I felt like bringing this up was because the presentation of the lore was one of my favorite things about Clannad. The series from time to time will have an episode where the same characters we know make different decisions or are in some kind of alternative circumstance. The series doesn't spoon-feed every last detail to you as a viewer, and I actually very much enjoyed that aspect because I feel like a lot what could magically mystify a story could also be overtly explained. I think it's by all means still important that a story makes sense, but it's far more interesting to me if the story infers you to a conclusion rather than force-feed you what happened. Clannad actually has supernatural elements, and although the anime deals with supernatural events, it doesn't really harp on this element very much. It provides just enough contextual information for you as a viewer to fill in the gaps of the story, and even if the anime explained every detail, in a lot of ways, I feel like it would have been completely pointless. The anime is literally called Clannad. It's about coming together. It's about having a family. If the intended message of Clannad was that coming together and being a family was important, then it absolutely did a great job making these principles the focal point of the narrative. The anime has quite a few shortcomings in the first season, but the passionate displayment of that concept of family is flawless. There are utterly moving moments, and if the intention of the series was to make me, the viewer, feel emotionally moved, then Clannad achieves that. In conclusion, for me personally, I'm really happy I stuck it out and watched Clannad. I do not regret the time investment I put into the series. I would also say that Clannad, in a lot of ways, is a difficult anime to recommend because it's so slow in the beginning. I think a lot of people who pick it up may just drop it early on due to the painfully slow first season. If you haven't seen Clannad but you're thinking of doing so, I would say you should ask yourself this question. Am I willing to sit through a painfully slow 23 episode anime to eventually get a fantastic second season? If slice of life elements bores you to death and you can't stand having to endure slow progress before receiving gratification for your time spent, I would say you should probably skip this series. But if you're a patient viewer and you're willing to make that time investment, then I would say that Clannad is very much worth your time investment because the roller coaster that you get out of Clannad is very much worth the time that you put into it if you're patient enough to do so. And I am going to wrap up this video, but I do want to say, first off, I know it's been a long time since I've uploaded something. It's about 9 or 10 months since I've last uploaded, and I just want to give a very heartfelt thank you to those who have supported me. There have been people who have supported me even through all that time, and that's just like the craziest thing to me, so thank you so much. I do want to say thank you so much for your support, and as always, it's been a blast. If you've liked or disliked, or if you've agreed with me, or disagreed with me, or if I elicited any form of involuntary responses whatsoever, then I'm going to go ahead and ask you to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much. My name's Jeiku, and I'll see you all next time.